welcome to another Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays.
Rolls off the tongue.
The show. The what?
Rolls off the tongue, man.
Yeah, totally, completely. But this is the show where we, myself, Pedro Mateos, and Mr. Van Stone, and the occasional special guest, which we don't have one this week, but it's lined up, don't you worry about it, where we talk about all things, even tangentially, related to Linux. And this week, those tangential things seem to include at least 2 Microsoft stories.
Up is down, left is right. Let's get into it. Announcing SQL service on oh my God, right? This is a thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Difficulty. We're not on the onion.com. This is actually blogs.microsoft.com.
Hashtag not the onion.
Right. Extending SQL Server to also now run on Linux. Pedro, what's wrong with the world now? I mean,
it's opposite day or opposite year.
I don't know. The first thing that came to my mind was quoting Linus. He says, if Microsoft ever does applications for Linux, it means I've won. Well, you've won, apparently, Brad. Here's what I'm thinking. My first thing is like, what's the use case for this? I can't put that together, but all I can think of is, in a few years, they're probably going to drop support for the Linux client, and all the users will have to use an older unsecured version.
That's exactly what will happen if they ever adopt it.
But here's kind of my theory about this, because I don't think this will receive any adoption whatsoever. Why, you might ask, Vin? This is a great product from Microsoft. They're great. They're supporting Linux. Well, I'm going to tell you. Windows administrators are both angered and confused by Linux, and Linux administrators know better. Easy as that.
And seeing as I'm a Linux admin by profession, I'd rather deal with MariaDB or PostgreSQL or the already available MySQL, although I'd rather not use this last one, let alone deal with actual MS SQL. No,
man. I was... the only thing I can think is like maybe some people at Oracle are going, oh crap, maybe they can integrate now, and I don't know. And Linux Nero and Chat Realm, right now you have a good point. I mean, that was my first thought when they said this. I was like, what about we've seen their loving care that they've taken of Skype that they haven't updated in 4 years since purchasing for the Linux client. That's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
But at least we're done talking about Microsoft for today, right?
No, we're not.
Damn it.
Because hot on the heels of that last story, Microsoft will release a custom Debian Linux. That's right. They actually repeated in the article title, a custom Debian Linux for networking. Now, this is basically Azure OS, as it were. They called it Sonic. It's got all of the open source tools that provide a much finer control over the hardware than the proprietary variants do, ironically. And if the recent failures of the eponymous Blue Hedgehog are any indication, this is not going to go over very well. Again, it's Debian-based, and Linus Torvalds has won.
I don't know with this. I mean, I've said I'm drastically going to oversimplify this. So you can send us some feedback and give us all the details, but
yes.
To really oversimplify this, this is double DWRT for network switches, basically. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to rely on its built-in firmware to get it to do what you want. And what can only be described as that was kind of a good idea, Microsoft, to use Debian as opposed to some, like, we don't know how to do the embedded, because, I mean, you're not going to shove embedded Windows 10 on these things, let's face that, right?
Windows CE.
Right. Now, kind of to quote, who wrote this? Chris Williams, and, right here at the end, he had a real good point. What did he write? Those of us who found themselves in the business, on the business end of Microsoft in the 1990s will be thinking of the old words from a nearly forgotten age. Embrace, extend, extinguish. And
registered trademark.
I know. What this I could see having some adoption, though, because this doesn't seem like it's pants on head retarded, right?
No, this makes sense, and it actually expands the usefulness of the Azure implementation that they have going on, and it makes sense. But again, it's like you said in the previous story. Linux admins are scared when it comes to Linux, and the Linux admins don't want anything to deal with Microsoft, so they're not going to use Sonic. It's just no. But hey, they might actually see something come from this. More news in the weeks to follow. But one thing that people do trust, especially in the Linux community, is encryption. There was that OpenSSL snafu a few years back, but now, last year or the year before that, one of those. But yeah, this comes from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and Let's Encrypt has issued its first million certificates. That's 1 million encryption certificates that are now serving over 2.5 million fully qualified domains. Yeah, it's pretty damn awesome. Decentralizing the encryption providers and allowing for more people to get HTTPS access is always a good thing in my opinion. So good on them, and also good on Akamai and Cisco for the financial support that they provided for the guys at Let's Encrypt, because they got them off the ground. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was just looking at one of these charts here. .com by TLD, great. The orange color is other, so I'm guessing that is .horse. I don't know.
.onion?
Or something like that. Definitely like this. This is great. Kind of wish this was like maybe 5 months before it originally launched. It launched, and we were on the early beta testers before it went public, and it was just a nightmare to configure, and it's still kind of a nightmare to configure. And so we ended up just using with our business box, we just got a standard SSL. But when it comes to configuring it, this will be in the show notes. There is a list of client implementations to kind of help you sort some of that out. To make life just...
And now that they have everything in place, they could probably optimize the implementation itself.
Well, one of the neat things it does, I mean, is it constantly, what is it, every 30 days it rotates your certificate, right?
Yeah. First, 30? Yes, 30 days.
30 days. And that is going to require some automation, I know, but it is fantastic. It's free. Everything should be secure. High NSA. Just good job. Good work. And it's good. It's just good to see. I mean, this is something that should have happened 10 years ago. And I know the certificate authorities are going, no, because they really,
we're losing money,
right? Because certificates are expensive. Yeah, trust me, I bought a couple. But let's talk some more about security, and this time we're going to talk about the PlayStation 4. More importantly, getting Linux to run on your PlayStation 4, because it's finally happened, kind of.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. Fail Overflow, a couple of days ago, they released their, it's on the GitHub, and there'll be another link in the notes, what they did to get, what was it? They ended up getting running on it.
Linux 4.4?
Gentoo, yeah. With
Gentoo,
4.4, yeah. Right. But if you're thinking right now, okay, why is this a thing? Well, it'd be really good for a low cost. What are those things? They're running the Jaguar. Octa-core?
Yeah, Jaguar APUs. Yeah, 8-core APU with embedded R9 to 80-ish.
Really cheap Linux bugs. You can make it in that before you run out and go, okay, this is definitely going to be a thing. This is not other OS. You're going to need, you can't have your firmware updated above 1.76. You're also going to need the PS4, the KE exec loader, and the, come on, people naming.
Batteretic kernel exploit.
And even then, it's still not going to work because they did not show you the way how they injected this exploit. But all the code's up there. Even if you get through all that, I mean, including adding the extra code, I mean, you'll either get your Gentoo up and running or more than likely a brick box. So it's better to hold off and wait for that sauce.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's better. What was it? Was the PS3 that had other OS on it?
Yeah, it was a PS3 that originally had Yellow Dog.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was Yellow Dog that other OS was actually Yellow Dog. But yeah, it was the PS3 and the US. Was it the Air Force or the Navy that bought like 500 PS3s to make a computing cluster out of them using the other OS? And then Sony went, yeah, we're nuking that option. All right, so we're getting rid of those PS3s. Thanks for all the fish. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good first step, because if they manage to get the kexec dump from the custom BSD kernel that runs the PS4 firmware, OS, whatever you want to call it, it'll be the very first step for PS4 emulation on other x86 64 operating systems. And I want to see some of that soon.
No, man, it's Sony. I mean...
Yeah, that's the reason why they didn't publish the actual sauce for the injection, because they don't want Sony to fix that.
And which brings us back to, I believe it was Extra Credits that said it a few years back. Sony, do not tango with the type of people who want to install Linux on their PlayStation. It's a losing battle, okay?
Yep.
Keep that in mind. But let's talk about some volume. You apparently have an issue with this.
I always have had an issue with this ever since, well, even back in the Fuduntu days, because, yeah, Pulse Audio in some distributions comes pre-configured by default to automatically level every single application that is using a specific audio device. So say you have a YouTube video playing on your headphones at 50% volume, and you have the headphone volume also at 50%. But then you start up a VLC video, and that is by default goes to 100%. So it would push the volume on the headset to 100% as well, and it would bring the YouTube video along with it, thus murdering your ears. Now, Ven, you put there in the notes that Ubuntu never does this by default.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the case with Fedora, and you can see the Red Hat Bugzilla there. Yeah, this is one of the things that I've always had to change because I don't want my ears murdered thanks to Pulse Audio. The buffer underruns already do that. So yeah, Mr. Rex Dieter down at the bottom says, for posterity, understand that this decision to disable flat volumes is likely only temporary until issues with its enablement, outlined within this bug mostly, can be addressed satisfactorily. But yeah, so packaging-wise, this is going to stop being the default for the Fedoras and the Red Hats. Good on them. Finally.
I said when I was reading through this, I'm running the Ubuntu LTS series because all the game developers are like, we're going to base everything on that. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll run the damn thing. And I've never had a problem with it when you're like, oh yeah, that's the thing. And I was like, you poor things. But
yeah.
Then again, you also have to deal with the audio underruns with Pulse 2 a lot, right?
Yep. Every now and again, there's going to be a Unity game that uses an old version of Fmod that still uses ULSA. And the ULSA plugin has the very nasty tendency to cause a buffer underrun, which causes all sound to be distorted, which basically just crashes that entire audio stream. It just crashes it, and then it takes Pulse Audio a while to get it back. So if you add the pulse latency msec60 to the environment variables, like I always do whenever I do a fresh install, you won't have to deal with it anymore. Or you could do it on a game-by-game basis, just in the off chance that it causes some other problems.
Well, this is exciting. You ever heard about this thing? We were just talking about Ubuntu, but this is another thing. FGLRX. That's AMD's video driver. Well, they're a proprietary binary blob, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And, well, it seems like the guys at Canonical are just like, you know what? We've kind of had enough of this.
Yep.
With their 1604 LTS release, it will no longer be included. They suggest that you use the open source alternatives, Radeon and AMD GPU, which a lot of people who are wanting to play the games are like, but
yeah.
this isn't the end of the day. It's the first thing I thought. No, you had a brilliant thing. We were like, all right, somebody's gonna make a PPA for it, right?
Yeah. In a matter of days.
Until very recently, if you didn't want to compile your NVIDIA drivers from source, you were not dependent on Ubuntu for the NVIDIA drivers because they were like 15 years behind. You went to Xwork Edgers. But now NVIDIA's taken over the responsibility for that. So we'll definitely see something pop up. And then again, you can also install them for yourself if you need them for like Open Computer or anything like that. But what do you think, P-Man? Are you going to support Mir with the blob drivers? And AMD went, the hell's a Mir, man?
Yeah, I didn't even think of the Mir implementation because the Ubuntu community is second only to the Arch community when it comes to having their own user repositories. In Ubuntu, they're called the PPAs. And okay, let's assume some member of the community decides to, all right, let's do all the patching from the FGLRX blob and make a PPA, package it properly, and do all that. What's the feasibility of one or two people managing to implement the Mir support, or for those other Ubuntu flavors that don't use Mir? How's that compatibility going to work? I honestly don't see it.
Well, now, if you don't know what Mir is the Canonical's proprietary, not proprietary, but trust me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like DX12. They're the only ones developing it, and no one else wants to use it except people who run on that platform, and it's not going to go anywhere. It was this write once thing that was supposed to work on your desktop and on the Ubuntu phone, which absolutely took off. Yeah, man. But in all fairness, NVIDIA hasn't said anything about Mir. I guess we're all just still waiting on Wayland because it seems like every 6 months, every distribution's like, we're shipping with Wayland. Psych!
Well, Fedora, since Fedora 18, no, but the thing is, this would be a kick in the teeth for AMD. It's like, an operating system that has several million users is deprecating our drivers. But they don't give a rat's ass about Linux, so they don't really care. And chances are they're going to keep not caring for the time being anyway.
Well, I mean, I guess in closing on this particular story is something I was thinking about is how many people who have installed Linux or genuinely had built a Linux box went, yeah, I'm getting an AMD card. I'll have some of that. After doing 2 minutes of research.
Considering the amount of threads that show up on Linux_gaming asking that exact same question.
No. I said Linux users, not filthy dual booting heathens.
Oh, yeah. No. That's
okay.
Fine.
All right.
And hey, if you're using Windows and playing only DirectX games, chances are an AMD card is probably the best bang for your buck.
Okay, start that holy war. Let's talk about this.
The Google Play Music Desktop Player. That's about as redundant as Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays, but whatever. This is someone had the idea of making a desktop implementation of the Google Play Music Player that you can already have for your Android devices, and if you have Chrome installed on your Linux box, you can just add the Chrome extension and set it to open on a window of its own, and it basically does the same thing, so what's the point? And it only gets worse, because if you want to, say, upload your own MP3s to the Play Music service, you have to have the Play Music extension installed on your Chrome browser in order for this little app to be able to do it on its own. But to be fair, it is an HTML5 app that just runs natively on the Linuxes. But there's also one other issue, because as soon as you start it, it creates a folder in your user's home that's called gpmdp_store in full caps, because F the XGG directories, am I right?
I don't know, man. I got it. Here's my installation process with this thing, right? So, and I was like, okay, I'm going to download the latest. Didn't want to bother with the Git, and then because I was like, oh, you have a thing for the Ubuntu's. And I was like, all right, let's install that. Installed that, and I was like, all right, we're good. Went to the menu, and I was like, logically, that's probably going to be under, I don't know, multimedia, right? No,
Nope.
not having anything. So then you go on the search, and I was like, all right, what pants on head retarded place did you put it? Apparently nowhere. It didn't do a menu entry. So then you go back to the deb file, unzip it, dig around, find the bin, and you're like, oh, right, open a terminal, then launch it from there. Then it finally launches. Now, that said, out of the box, it launched, no issues, logged in, did the thing, and it's just like, hey, man, you really like Typo Negative. Do you want to listen to some Typo Negative right now? You already clicked play it. I was like, doing it. And if you're not on the paid service, I mean, it does have, I guess that's part of what YouTube Red, where you get rid of all the commercials and everything. I mean, it does have commercials. That's definitely a thing.
Yeah, it's basically Spotify.
Yeah, it integrates with Last FM. So if you got that, I mean, it's something, it's a good start. And it has this neat feature of when you close it, it gives you a notification. And it's like, hey, Brad, check this out. I'm going to minimize in your system tray that you don't have on XFCE. You can change that in the settings later. Bad idea, but just bad design. You should say, hey, I'm thinking about it. Would you like to disable this feature before this box goes flipping out on one of my monitors? And I'm like, where's that? Good thing I launched it from terminal. Derp. Yep. And it's gone. For me, though, I don't know, P-Man. How do you listen to your music? Most of the time, I'll have it on one of my tablets, piped out to Sonos. And personally, I have Amazon Prime, so I got the music thing. I have Amazon Prime for the shipping. They just give the video, and so that's extra sauce for me. But then when I do listen to music, that's normally how I do it.
Well, for me, I just go on YouTube, find the My Mix automatic playlist that YouTube creates for you based on your video history. So every now and again, I'll be listening to, all right, I remember that song. And then it changes to something completely different, and I go to it. Oh, recommended because you watched Video X. Oh, that's pretty neat. I like the YouTube thing, but yeah, no, I don't use a dedicated desktop client for listening to music either.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, it was pretty sweet. And I mean, there's channels, I was learning about it, and it has a Typo Negative channel, which is like songs similar to Typo Negative, because after the first Typo Negative song, this other song started off, and like in the first 2 seconds, I was like, that's not a Typo Negative song. The first two notes was like, I would know this, but I was listening. And I was like, it was something from Fear Factory. I was like, all right, still a crunchy groove, man. I can dig that, but that's a thing. But
Anarchy in the UK.
XCOM, give it to you. XCOM 2 recruits Anarchy's children on March 17th. It's a thing. What is it? You never heard it. Well, you already know what XCOM 2 is. This is the first DLC that was promised with the, what was it? The reinforcement pack.
Reinforcement, yes.
Yeah. And this is basically a bunch of skins. You get one new character and a couple of other special things. Only available on Steam. First thing this morning when I woke up, Feral contacted us. And they're like, hey guys, launching same day on Linux too. So we're not going to have to wait for that. So if you already have the reinforcement pack, you don't have to do anything extra. It's just going to show up. And this is not directed at Feral. No, this is directed at the guys from XCOM 2. And maybe Shabril, maybe write us some feedback for next week. What do you think? You know, I know they said they're going to be rolling out, and there's like 3 additional packages for the reinforcement thing, you know, which was part of that pack. Which you can also buy a la carte if you want. But anyway, I think the community would have rather them dedicated the time to improving performance on the game versus even thinking about getting started working on DLC. But you have a different take?
I mean, that's a very Warner Brothers thing to do. It's like, we're not going to give the developers any more money for them to fix their busted game. We're just going to give them more money for them to make DLC. Yeah. But yeah, it's actually good on Feral for managing the performance improvements they did on the previous patch for XCOM 2. Considering the bases that they had to work with, it couldn't have been an easy feat.
No,
Feral
did an amazing job of just getting this.
Yeah.
And Feral's, keeping right with it, making sure we're going to get the day one release for the XCOM 2. But Before we close this out, we have a little bit of feedback. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
But
we didn't forget that this week.
Yeah, I know, right? Before we do that, we want to thank. We're horrible at self-promotion, okay? Let's just get that out of the way. We're not very good at it. But I did send out a thing earlier last week. Wait, no, this week. I think, beginning of this week. It's weird. I was like, hey guys, we're getting really close to doing this Linux Weekly Daily Wednesday thing, and boom, check it out. Here we are, because we're over that Patreon goal. I just want to thank everyone who's a Patreon, and some of the new people. Christian S., you upped your pledge. TechMad up. Chidi kicked in. Jonathan P., Mark C., and Alexander R., you kicked in some for the PayPal, and that always helps. But let's get into the feedback.
We're currently at 137.45 with 72 Patreons.
Sweet.
Good on you guys, seriously. But yeah, we did get some feedback a couple of weeks ago when we mentioned that Hitman Go was coming to Linux and the implications of having the first Square Enix game come to Linux. And Nehemiah apparently said, Hitman Go requires 2 megabytes of RAM because it's for cell phones, I bet. No. You see, Ven put this, before we started recording, he actually put this very well. It's, developers tend to cock up their Linux system requirements very, very commonly. It's
No, I mean, I completely get where he's coming from, man. His first thought was like, yeah, it's probably just the mobile requirements. And I was like, you're using logic. You can't use logic on this. No. I mean, they have sorted the actual minimum system
requirements,
which makes it even more delightfully backwards than originally, because now it's 1 gigajoule of RAM, but if you recommended only 2 megabytes of RAM, yep, 2 gigs of space recommended 2. I mean, they recommend you take an adventure and find that elusive 2 megabyte.
Sim.
I used to have a 1 megabyte compact flash card. $7.99 still a thing. We're actually going to be taking a look at it on our other show, Linux Gamecast Weekly, this Saturday. So, again, that's going to do it. Thanks, Patreons. Send us some feedback through. Right now, we're going to start working on the Linux Weekly Daily. I'm getting mad at it now. Linux Weekly Daily Wednesdays site. But for now, just go to linuxgamecast.com. Hit the contact button, just put a note in the header. This is for, LWDW, and let us know what you think. We'll have this up later today for your viewing pleasure. I'm Ben Stone.
And I am Pedro Mateos.
And you guys
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you for letting us make it happen. Letting us make it happen? I don't know.
All the
Yeah,
things.
doesn't mind.